Another Superman movie, and you already know what comes next. The takes. Not thoughtful, not clever, but some of the worst takes you've ever heard. People claiming this Superman is weak, people crying that Supergirl was ruined, people complaining he's too emotional or saying the Justice Gang cameos were just cheap setup. But here's the truth. Most of these arguments don't even make sense once you look at the actual movie. They fall apart with just a little context, and today we're going to break them all down, one by one, so that by the end, you'll see why this Superman isn't just powerful. He's one of the most layered and human versions of the character we've ever had. So buckle in, because the bad takes are flying in faster than a speeding bullet, and we're about to shut them down. Let's start with the most common complaint. Superman is too weak. You've probably seen it all over social media. Clips of him struggling in a fight. People saying, this isn't the Man of Steel, he's too soft, he's been nerfed. On the surface, maybe it looks like he isn't dominating every single battle. But take one step back, and the entire argument collapses. The movie makes it clear right away. Superman is the most powerful metahuman in the DCU. Nobody can touch him, until the Hammer of Bravia shows up. That fight isn't about making Superman look bad. It's about raising the stakes. It's about showing what happens when the strongest man in the world finally meets someone who can push him. And honestly, wouldn't it be boring if Superman just one-shotted every villain? If the film had him mowing through everyone without breaking a sweat, people would be calling him overpowered. The movie gave us something way more interesting. Superman actually having to dig deep, actually being tested, actually learning what it means to lose. Now, let's add even more context. Because these fights aren't random. Superman isn't struggling against weaklings, he's facing enemies designed to counter him. Lex Luthor literally created a clone of Superman out of a single strand of hair. Think about that. A perfect genetic copy with all his powers, all his abilities, but controlled by Lex's genius. Lex spent years studying Superman. He memorized over 2,500 combat moves. He broke down Superman's every strength and weakness so he could counter them with precision. So when Superman was getting pushed in those fights, it wasn't because he was weak, it was because he was basically fighting himself, but with Lex's brain pulling the strings. That's not weakness. That's storytelling. That's smart writing. And let's not forget, the Hammer of Bravia? That wasn't some random alien. That was a warrior designed to be Superman's first real loss. After 3 years of winning every single battle, this was the first time Clark Kent truly failed. That doesn't nerf him. It elevates the story. It shows us the kind of hero Superman is when he's backed into a corner. Now here's the part that blows the weak Superman argument out of the water. Even while weakened, this Superman pulled off feats that prove just how insanely powerful he really is. After his first big fight, he wasn't even fully healed. The movie spells it out. 83% strength, still damaged, still vulnerable. Yet he survived nearly an entire day of kryptonite exposure while trapped in the Pocket Universe. For almost 24 hours, his body was breaking down at the cellular level. And still, he endured. That alone would be enough. But then he went further. He resisted the pull of a black hole with nothing but his breath. He survived the anti-Roten River, a force so destructive it should have torn him apart in seconds. That's not weak. That's not nerfed. That's Superman at his most resilient. These are some of the most impressive feats we've seen from him on screen. And here's where the hypocrisy really kicks in. The same people saying this Superman is too weak were completely silent when Henry Cavill's Superman was struggling in Man of Steel. Remember those fights with Farah and Namek? Clark was getting tossed around, slammed through buildings, struggling just to keep up. But nobody said he was nerfed. You know why? Because it made sense. They were trained soldiers from Krypton with years of combat experience, while Clark was still figuring things out. Alright, let's move to the second terrible take. Supergirl. Near the end of the film, she shows up for a quick cameo. Less than a minute of screen time. And already, fans were online screaming, James Gunn ruined her. This isn't my Kara. Why? Because she was drunk. That's it. One scene of her drinking, and suddenly people think the character is destroyed forever. But here's the thing, this version of Supergirl isn't a random invention. It's pulled directly from the comics. If you've ever read Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, by Tom King, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The book literally introduces Kara drunk, celebrating her 21st birthday on a red sun planet. It's right there in the first few pages, and when you understand her backstory, it makes perfect sense. Kara didn't land in Kansas and grow up with two loving parents. She lived through absolute trauma. She watched Krypton's destruction with her own eyes. She survived on Argo City while 13,000 people died around her from kryptonite poisoning. Her father saved her by building a rocket, but he died too. By the time she landed on Earth, she was already scarred for life. So yes, this Supergirl is rougher. She's not a copy-paste female Superman. She's darker, more complicated, and sometimes harder to love. That's the point. Complaining that she's drunk in one cameo just shows you don't know her comics. This movie actually respected the character by sticking true to her real story. Now, on to the third take. Superman is too emotional. Fans complained that he yells too much, cries too much, feels too much. But let's be honest, this might be the dumbest one of them all. For decades, the biggest criticism of Superman has been that he's boring. Too perfect, too robotic, too unrelatable. Now we finally get a Superman who feels like a person. A man who shows anger when Lex manipulates him. A man who feels fear when he might lose Krypto, his dog. A man who feels sadness when the world he saves still doubts him. That doesn't make him weak, that makes him real. Superman's greatest strength has never been just his powers, it's his humanity. The fact that he can be stronger than gods but still care about the people around him. That he can laugh, that he can cry, that he can love. This movie nails that idea. At one point, Superman even says, "I get scared. I try to make the best choices I can. I screw up all the time. That is being human, and that's my greatest strength." That line sums it up perfectly. Superman is the bridge between gods and men. Not because of his powers, but because of his heart. If you think emotion makes him less of a hero, you don't understand Superman. Finally, let's tackle the last bad take. People saying the Justice Gang cameos are just as bad as the Justice League setup in Batman v Superman. The argument goes, both movies shoved in characters to tease the next big thing. It's lazy world building. But here's why that's wrong. In BVS, Wonder Woman opens an email. She clicks through videos of Aquaman, Cyborg, and The Flash. That's it. Those clips have zero impact on the plot. You could cut the entire scene out and the movie doesn't change. But in this Superman film, the Justice Gang actually matters. Mr. Terrific helps track down Superman when he's trapped in the Pocket Universe. Metamorpho is literally the cause of his kryptonite poisoning, but then he helps him escape. Green Lantern and Hawkgirl play major roles in stopping the final conflict. These aren't empty cameos. They're baked into the story. They push the narrative forward, take them out, and the movie breaks. That's the difference. That's how you build a shared universe without making it feel forced. So let's bring this all together. The claim that Superman was too weak? Wrong. He showed some of his greatest feats ever. The complaint that Supergirl was ruined? False. She was introduced exactly like her comics. The argument that Superman was too emotional? Backwards. His humanity is his strength. And the take that the Justice Gang cameos were lazy? Completely off. They actually matter to the plot. At the end of the day, these bad takes don't reveal flaws in the movie. They reveal flaws in how people watch movies. They prove that some fans don't want context, don't want depth, and don't want growth. They just want easy sound bites. But Superman isn't about easy. He's about hope. About resilience, about being human in a world that tries to strip that away. And this movie, more than most, captured that. So the next time you see someone online crying that Superman was nerfed, or that Supergirl was ruined, or that emotions make him weak, remember this: those takes aren't just wrong. They miss the entire point of Superman.